Oh, hello. Every so often, Wizards of the Coast makes a special set that is not a part of Standard, but that contains amazing, creative, and yes, powerful cards for Magic the Gathering. Commander players rejoice. Legacy players rejoice. Pauper players rejoice. Cube crafters rejoice, and now Modern players rejoice. And thus presented here are the top 5 cards from this special set, most likely to have a significant impact on Modern. Let's begin with the card that blows my mind. I have passed judgment on this as powerful and impactful, and that card is Council's Judgment. Council's Judgment in Modern is beyond amazing. Obviously designed for the multiplayer aspect of this special set, Council's Judgment becomes an unconditional removal in 1v1. It doesn't target, so you can exile hexproof creatures, gets past indestructibility and regeneration and protection and even Shroud. Mark my words, this card will see Modern play. Alright, number 4 is a reprint from all the way back of Urza's Saga, and that card is Exploration. I can't wait to... What's that? What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm doing the Conspiracy special set cards that are going to see Modern play. Not Modern Legal. Oh, come on. It's a different special set? All right, let's do over. Presented here are the top 5 cards from this special set, most likely to have significant impact on Modern. Let's begin with Arena Rector. Arena Rector is so much more than just a tutor, a sheep. What? No? You're not taking any cards from Battle Bond into Modern either? But are they going to be legal in Legacy? But not Modern? Different special set? What's another special set? True Name Nemesis from Commander 2013 is going to be making waves in Modern. Give me a break. By reprinting Show and Tell in Conspiracy 2, Modern gets a game-changing card that, yeah, what? Why isn't it Modern legal? It's not Modern, but... Karlov of the Ghost Council from Commander 2015 is such a fun Modern addition. And Blue Elemental Blast, reprinted in Jace's signature spellbook, and now Modern legal. Oh, come on, no? Well, at least we get it in Pauper. Wait, it's not Pauper legal either? Why isn't it Pauper legal? What is Pauper legal? Jiang Yang Gu is still pretty weak, but out of the entire global series, he still... Oh, come on. He was legal in Standard, at least in mainland China, but not Modern legal? Is it legal in Modern if you play with him in Modern in mainland China? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. All right, last try. Magic Horizons comes out in a few days, and with it, amazing cards for Modern? What? Oh, it's called Modern Horizons. Wait, does that mean, could it be? It does? Yes! So, can we just go back and make all those other special set cards Modern legal now too? No? In this video, I'll be focusing only on original cards made for Modern Horizons, and not reprints, which I will cover in another video. So everything here is brand new cards made in Modern Horizons, no reprints listed. I'll also not be discussing the very obvious auto-includes of Horizon Canopy lands, simply because it is obvious these will see play, and there's not much to say beyond simply what can and has already been said about Horizon Canopy, now applicable for other color combinations. Along those same lines, Prismatic gets a nod from me here, as it's just one more piece that can help mana bases in Modern, but I want to talk non-land and non-reprint cards that are going to make an actual impact in the format. I've also got a special award at the end of this video for a card so revolutionary for Modern that it's going to get a prize above my number 1 pick. So after my number 1 pick, don't turn off the video just yet, because there's a grand prize to be had, and it is quite extraordinary and rad. But first, I'm going to start with an honorable mention, because it's the best Merfolk card in the set. And even though it is in no way going to help my beloved merfolk climb the competitive ladder, I do want to talk about it. And that card is Unsettled Mariner. Unsettled Mariner is a 2/2 for a white and a blue, and is a changeling, meaning this card is every creature type, including merfolk. And at 2 for a 2/2 for something cool, it is the most merfolky card there is. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. This is reminiscent of both Kira, Great Glass Spinner, and Kopala. Kira, Great Glass Spinner has the better ability, flat out countering spells and abilities that target your creatures the first time each turn. Kira costs 2 blue in a generic and only has the drawback of being a spirit herself and not a merfolk. Kopala, on the other hand, is a merfolk, also costing 2 blue in a generic, but instead of countering spells outright, Kopala counters them unless their controller pays 2. Also, unlike Kira, who protects every creature you control, Kopala only protects your merfolk. Unsettled Mariner protects all your creatures and also has the bonus of protecting you as well, but only adds a force spike tax of 1 mana, which is easy enough to get around any time but early game. At 1 white as well, it requires a white splash, something I do enjoy in merfolk, but at the end of the day, I am not swapping out my Kira Great Glass Spinners for this card. Why then is this an honorable mention? Because it is going to see modern play, just not in merfolk. That's right, the best merfolk card in the set actually has a place in modern, and that is in humans. As a changeling, it is a human itself, and the tax on spells and abilities is a needed tool in the kit of modern humans. And I do believe this will be included in many human lists, although maybe only as a sideboard card. So merfolk can't benefit from it, but humans can? How unsettling. Let's begin our feast of cards for Modern from Modern Horizons with a flame and some light seasoning. A perfect start for number 5 on our list, and that is Seasoned Pyromancer. Seasoned Pyromancer is a human shaman for 1 generic and double red. When Seasoned Pyromancer enters the battlefield, discard 2 cards, then draw 2 cards. For each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. For 3 generic and 2 red, exile Seasoned Pyromancer from your graveyard, create 2 1/1 red elemental creature tokens. I don't even know where to begin in extolling the virtues of this card. It offers card draw and selection, fuel for discard, creature token generation, and further function while just sitting in your graveyard. This is going to be experimented with in just about every deck that runs enough red to handle the double R, offering those decks better advantage over control and aggro answers. While far too much of a red mana requirement for humans decks, there's a few places in Modern this is possibly headed. Perhaps bringing back Mardu Pyromancer and Dredgevine decks. But of course, the most obvious spot is in the already dominant Phoenix decks. While I'm excited for the prospect of fun and fair decks like Pyromancer and Dredgevine returning to Modern, making Phoenix even stronger means that despite all this seasoning, a lot of Modern players might feel somewhat burnt. One of the things we saw with a lot of Modern Horizons were cards that were almost reprints of legacy staples, perhaps altering power level just enough to keep them from running too wild in the Modern format. And that's our next card, number 4 on this list. It's one that's still just as powerful as her legacy counterpart, with even more protection to boot. And that card is Giver of Runes. Giver of Runes is 1 white for a core cleric. Tap, and another target creature you control gains protection from colorless or the color of your choice until end of turn. Yep, got it. She can't block and then tap to protect herself. I hear you. Got it. Yeah, I hear you. Got it. That's one of the most overwhelmingly powerful aspects of Mother of Runes, the self-protection for blocking, and yes, I'd rather have had a straight reprint of Mom into Modern, but I actually really like that advantage of Giver of Runes being able to protect against colorless, something Mom can't do. In particular, this helps greatly against Eldrazi decks. I still think Giver has a lot to give to the format. Death and Taxes, while not top tier, is still a strong contender in Modern even before this card, and with it, that already existing deck got more than a little bit better. Alright, our next card benefits extremely well from the announcement of the London Mulligan Mulligan being adopted by all competitive formats. It enables turn 2 kills in Modern, and that London Mulligan helps make that more consistent and reliable, scaling up Infect decks with Scale Up. Scale Up is a single green mana for a sorcery that reads, until end of turn, target creature you control becomes a green worm with base power and toughness 6/4. That's enough right there, but it also has an overload for 4 generic and 2 green, which will change its text by replacing all instances of target with each. But we don't need it. I just need the 1 green. You see, using Scale Up on a creature with Infect does not take away the infection. So, turn 1 Glistener Elf, turn 2 Scale Up, plus, let's say Might of Old Krosa, and you are swinging in for 10 Infect turn 2. GG for only GG. A couple mutagenic growths in place of the Might, or a mutagenic and a giant growth, or a groundswell with landfall activated, and on and on. You just have so many options for that turn 2 kill, or turn 3 with an unblockable Blighted Agent. The London Mulligan means you can keep mulliganing and just ensure you have the parts you need to pull off this early game stomping, meaning that Infect is spreading through the levels of Modern once more. Are cards like Force of Negation the cure, or will they only slow down the inevitable downfall? Only time will tell. But Force of Negation did not quite make my list. I think it'll see Modern play, but that doesn't mean that it's in my cut of top 5. And that's always a tough list to curate for sure, which is why I like doing top 5 instead of, say, top 10, where there's a lot more that we can mention. I like that restriction. As usual, moving on, number 2 and number 1 on this list may in fact work with their places switched. Certainly, number 2 has me more excited than number 1. Why? Because it is bringing in perhaps a brand new deck entirely, and all thanks to one of the most anticipated cards of the entire set for Modern. That card is Astral Slide. What's that? Oh, they didn't reprint Astral Slide, but it's Astral Drift? Is it better or worse than Astral Slide? Yes to both. What? Astral Drift, 2 generic and a white for an enchantment. Whenever you cycle Astral Drift or cycle another card while Astral Drift is on the battlefield, you may exile target creature. If you do, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. You can also discard this card to draw a card by cycling it for 2 generic and a white. I feel very confident a deck built around this card is going to happen. This card is very interesting because in some ways it is strictly better than the original Astral Slide in that it can cycle itself, but it's also worse than the original Astral Slide in that it does not trigger off your opponent's cycling. I'll take it as a strong card and one that might inspire an entire deck of significance using some key pieces like Wasteland Strangler and Edge of Autumn. Strangler is a fun addition as it'll let you gobble up any of your opponent's creatures that you slide into exile. Adding to this, Life from the Loam and Eternal Witness are going to be mainstays here, making Astral Loam decks a distinctly new and distinctly Abzan offering. With the printing of Cycle lands, as well as some of the leftover treats from Amonkhet, I think this deck has a strong possibility of taking hold in Modern. Alright, now remember, there's a card even more meaningful than this next number 1 pick, so stay tuned for the grand prize, but first, the number 1 card most likely to have an impact on Modern from Modern Horizons is... yes, it's a blue card. Blue. Try and keep control of yourself with Archmage's Charm. Archmage's Charm, blue and a blue and a blue. Oh my goodness. It's a modal instant, which means you can choose one. Counter target spell, target player draws 2 cards, or gain control of target non-land permanent with converted mana cost 1 or less. Let's throw up Cryptic Command as the card that is a key comparison. In Examination, Charm's first 2 modes don't really make it stand out against Cryptic Command, but that third ability is what really excites me. Charm can take ownership of tokens. It can take ownership of Ether Vials, as well as Modern's most powerful 1-drop creatures. Steal your opponent's Death's Shadow? Don't mind if I do. This card is powerful and ready for the main board. The only issue is, where are we going to main board it? We need to find decks that can triple blue on turn 3, which is not as easy as triple blue and a generic on turn 4, which is what Cryptic Command requires. In order to slot out Cryptic Commands for Archmage's Charm, the entire mana base would have to be overhauled if turn 3 efficiency was the priority. And I just don't think that's going to happen. So what I do think is going to happen is a return of decks like Blue Moon, whose mana base can handle this and whose curve will benefit greatly from it. Overall, it's still a slightly worse Cryptic Command, but Cryptic Command's so great that slightly worse Cryptic Command is still very powerful. And overall, I think this is the most powerful and significant card of Modern Horizons for Modern. Next to, of course, our grand prize. Just what is our grand prize? Well, it's a reprint, almost, of not only a reserve list card, but of a Power 9 reserve list card. It's Echo of Eons, and oh my goodness, there's so much more here than Modern relevancy. Echo of Eons is essentially a reserve list card, a part of the Power 9. 4 generic and 2 blue for a sorcery that reads, each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. The flashback cost is 2 and a blue to cast this card from your graveyard. The card in question we are comparing this to is Time Twister. And again, that card is not only on the reserve list, but considered one of the 9 most broken, most powerful cards in all of Magic. The only difference between Echo of Eons and Time Twister is that Echo costs 4 generic and 2 blue, and Time Twister costs 2 and a blue. Normally, such a dramatically different casting cost makes even a Power 9 card powered down to irrelevance. But Echo of Eons can be cast for the exact same cost as Time Twister, only from your graveyard using flashback. The flashback cost is the same as the original Time Twister, the effect the same. All you need is to dump this into your graveyard, which in Modern in particular is incredibly easy to do, and you've got yourself a Power 9. In Modern, the graveyard is practically your second hand for most decks. A simple turn 1 or turn 2 discard, which most decks do anyway, and a Time Twister is in your graveyard, ready to be cast for its vintage cost and effect. But the reason I have given this card such a special award and place is not the specifics of what I think it will do to or for Modern. In all honesty, I have no idea what effect this card will have on Modern, but I do know what I see in it. I see Wizards of the Coast wetting their toes, in a way, around the reserve list via flashback. And that is worthy of a grand prize and has me extremely excited and hyped for future cards like this. But now I want to hear from you. What cards from Modern Horizons are you most excited to see, and do you think will have the biggest impact on the format? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, whether you are buying booster packs, card sleeves, or other accessories, when it is possible, when you are able to do so reasonably, try and spend that money where you spend time playing this great game. And that's at your local game store whenever possible. You're supporting your Magic community.